There was a shadow. It did not begin in the cold, mist-shrouded castles of the Carpathian Mountains. It did not begin in the Gothic imaginations of the 19th century. Long before the first novel was printed, long before the first stone of Rome was laid, there was a shadow that walked the red sands of the ancient Near East. The people of the dust whispered its name only when the oil lamps began to flicker. They spoke of a wind, a cold, dry wind that swept out of the trackless wastes of the desert, carrying with it an insatiable hunger. It was a hunger that did not seek bread. It was a hunger that did not seek water. It sought the spark. It sought the very breath of life, hidden within the warmth of human veins. For thousands of years, humanity has tried to give this shadow a name. The Greeks called it the Empusa. The Romans called it the Strix. The Slavic peoples called it the vampire. But in the deep, silent spaces of antiquity, where the soil itself seemed to remember the first drop of blood that ever fell from a human vein, it was known by an older, darker name: Alukah, Lilitu, Lilith. To understand the shadow, we must travel back. We must go back to a time when the world was young, yet already weary. We must go back to the cradle of civilization, between the Tigris and the Euphrates, where the first cities rose like lonely islands in a vast and hostile wilderness. Here, beneath a sky that seemed to watch with cold, distant eyes, the Sumerians carved their fears into tablets of soft clay. The stylus moved, the clay dried, and the words remained. The scribes of Mesopotamia wrote of the Idimu, the spirits of the unburied dead that roamed the night, driven by a restless, howling agony. They wrote of the Utuku, demons of the wilderness that waited at the dark crossroads to steal the breath of the unwary. But among these terrors, one figure stood apart. She was the Lilitu. She was not a creature of flesh and bone. She was a spirit of the storm, a wild, untamed force that inhabited the ruined, desolate places where human feet dared not tread. In the ancient Sumerian inscriptions, she is depicted as a creature of flight, her feet like the talons of an owl, clutching the souls of those who slept beneath the canopy of stars. She was the thief of the night. She was the mother of the dark. The Sumerians believed that she could not bear children of her own, and so, driven by a bitter, eternal jealousy, she stole the children of others. She took the newborns from their cradles. She drained the strength of young men as they slept. She was the original parasite. But the ancient clay tablets only tell part of the story. They describe the symptom, but they do not explain the disease. They show the shadow, but they do not reveal the light that the shadow was trying to extinguish. For the true mystery does not begin with the clay tablets of Sumer. It begins with a different clay. It begins with the dust of the ground. In the beginning, the Creator knelt. His hands, which had flung the stars into the deep void of space, reached down into the damp, silent soil of a pristine earth. He shaped a vessel. It was a simple cup of clay. It had no beauty of its own. It was cold. It was still. It was nothing but dust. But then, the Creator did something extraordinary. He leaned over the clay vessel. He breathed into its nostrils the breath of life, and the vessel became a living soul. This was the first great mystery. The human body was designed to be a sacred container. It was a vessel meant to hold the very life force of God. It was a temple of clay, animated by the divine wind, designed to live in perfect communion with the source of all existence. There was no shadow. There was no hunger. There was only the light, shining brightly within the vessel of dust. But heaven had a law. It was a law of boundaries, a law of obedience, The vessel of clay was not autonomous, it was dependent upon the Creator for its life. To remain in the light, the vessel had to remain connected to the vine. We know the tragedy that followed. The boundary was crossed. The vessel fractured. When humanity chose to walk apart from the Creator, the divine breath began to leak from the clay. The light faded. A cold, dark void opened within the human soul, a spiritual vacuum that could no longer be filled by the presence of God. And in that vacuum, the hunger was born. It was a hunger to replace the lost life. It was a desperate, agonizing desire to fill the empty clay vessel with something, anything, that could mimic the warmth of the divine breath. And the closest thing to that breath was the blood. For the life of the flesh is in the blood. The shadow of Lilith, as it developed in the ancient imagination, became the personification of this spiritual theft. In the centuries that followed, as Jewish sages and mystics reflected on the brief, cryptic verses of Genesis, a shadow began to grow in the margins of the text. They looked at the creation account. They saw that in Genesis chapter 1, God created man and woman in his own image. But in Genesis chapter 2, he formed Adam from the dust, and later he fashioned Eve from Adam's rib. To the ancient interpreters, this was a riddle. They wondered, who was the woman of Genesis chapter 1? And so, the myth was born. They whispered of a first woman, a woman made not from Adam's side, but from the same red dust. They called her Lilith. The folklore spoke of her refusal to submit to Adam. She claimed equality, for they were both made of the same clay. When Adam insisted on dominance, she uttered the secret, ineffable name of the Creator, sprouted wings of shadow, and fled from the Garden of Eden. She flew to the Red Sea. It was a place of chaos, a place of demons. The story goes that the Creator sent 3 angels to retrieve her. Their names were Senoi, Sansenoi, and Semangeloth. They found her in the wild waters and demanded her return. She refused. She declared that she had been created only to cause sickness to newborns, to drain the life force of the living, and to hold power over young boys and girls. The angels threatened to drown her in the sea, but she bargained with them. She swore that whenever she saw the names of those 3 angels written upon an amulet, she would have no power over the child in that house. The angels relented, but the curse remained. Lilith became the eternal outcast. She was a woman of the dust who had rejected the divine breath, choosing instead to find her life in the shadows. She became the mother of the Shedim, the demons that roamed the desert wastes. She was the first to turn her back on the true source of life, and in doing so, she became the ultimate archetype of the blood drinker. This is the myth. It is a tale woven from the threads of Sumerian terror and Jewish folklore. It is not found in the pages of Holy Scripture. The Bible does not speak of a first wife who fled Eden to become a demon. But the Bible does speak of the reality behind the myth. It speaks of a spiritual warfare. It speaks of a dark, persistent corruption that sought to defile the blood from the very beginning. The first real manifestation of this shadow did not begin with Lilith. It began with a man. His name was Cain. He was the firstborn of the earth. He was a cultivator of the ground, a man who worked beneath the sun to bring forth life from the soil. He was meant to be the guardian of the earth, the one who would heal the fracture of his parents' fall. But he carried the hunger. He carried the dark void within his clay vessel. When the time came to offer a tribute to the Creator, Cain brought the fruit of his labor, the silent, bloodless yield of the earth. His brother Abel brought the firstlings of his flock, offering their life force back to the one who had given it. The smoke of Abel's altar rose straight into the clear blue sky. Cain's altar remained cold. The Creator warned him. He spoke of a beast waiting at the door. "Sin lies at the door," the Lord said. "Its desire is for you, but you must rule over it." Cain did not answer. He waited. He walked into the open field with his brother. The sky was heavy with silence. The wind died down. In the solitude of the wilderness, Cain rose against his brother. The blow was struck. The clay vessel of Abel was broken. And the earth drank. It was the first time human blood had ever touched the soil. It did not sink quietly into the dust. It cried out. It screamed with a voice that reached the very throne of the Almighty, demanding justice, demanding a response. The Lord spoke, and his words were like a heavy hammer falling upon iron. "What have you done?" the Lord demanded. "The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." The punishment was swift. Cain was cursed from the earth. The ground would no longer yield its strength to him. He was cast out from the presence of the Creator, destined to be a fugitive and a wanderer in the land of Nod, east of Eden. He wept. "My punishment is greater than I can bear," he cried. "Everyone who finds me will kill me." But the Lord did not let him die. Instead, he set a mark upon Cain. It was a sign of protection, but also a sign of separation. He was protected from physical death, yet he was barred from the source of spiritual life. He was cursed to wander the earth, alive but dead to the light, a shadow among shadows. He walked into the east, and the earth remembered. This is the true biblical archetype of the immortal wanderer. Cain was the first to be marked by a curse, the first to be associated with the blood that cries from the ground. He was the first to live a counterfeit existence, walking the earth as a physical living being, but spiritually dead. As the generations of Cain multiplied, the shadow deepened. The spiritual struggle grew more intense. The ancient world began to fill with violence, and the boundary between heaven and earth was breached once more. The Book of Genesis tells us that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves. From this forbidden union, a strange and terrible hybrid arose upon the earth. They were the Nephilim. They were the giants of old, men of renown, whose thoughts were only evil continually. And with them came a deeper, more ancient corruption. The ancient texts, such as the Book of Enoch, speak of these fallen entities teaching humanity the secrets of the dark. They taught them the art of war, the mixing of metals, and the forbidden rites of blood. The earth became defiled. The cry of the innocent rose to heaven, for the fallen ones had begun to sin against birds, beasts, reptiles, and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. They sought to absorb the souls of their victims. They believed that by drinking the blood, they could capture the divine spark, the eternal breath that the Creator had placed within mortal men. The blood was no longer sacred. It had become a drink of demons. It was during this era of darkness that the symbol of the cup took on its most terrifying meaning. It was no longer the simple clay vessel designed to hold the breath of God. It was now a cup of defilement. It was a vessel filled with the life force of the living, lifted up on the altars of the fallen. To drink from this cup was to attempt to steal immortality, to preserve one's own fragile existence by devouring the life of another. It was a dark sacrament, a covenant made with the shadows to escape the judgment of the light. Suspense hung over the ancient world like a shroud. The clouds gathered, the fountains of the great deep were broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. The dark waters of the great flood were gathering in the storehouses of heaven, waiting to wash away the pollution of the earth. The world was cleansed. The Nephilim were swept into the abyss. but the memory of the blood drinkers remained. The seed of the dark could not be so easily erased from the human heart. When Noah stepped out of the ark into a cold, silent world, the first thing he did was build an altar. He offered sacrifices of clean beasts, and the Creator smelled the soothing aroma. But with this new beginning came a solemn warning, a law that would stand for all generations. But you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is, its blood, the Creator commanded. Surely for your lifeblood I will demand a reckoning. From the hand of every beast I will require it, and from the hand of man. This was the great boundary. The blood belonged to God. It was the carrier of the soul, the sacred container of the breath of life. To touch it, to consume it, was to trespass upon the divine prerogative. It was to attempt to find life apart from the giver of life. Yet, as the nations grew and spread across the face of the earth, they forgot the warning of the flood. They returned to the old altars. In the sands of Canaan, in the temples of Babylon, in the dark groves of Phoenicia, the worship of blood returned. They believed that by drinking the blood of their sacrifices, they could gain supernatural strength, long life, and protection from the spirits of the night. They sought the Alukah. The word appears in the 30th chapter of the Book of Proverbs, a cryptic riddle hidden within the wisdom of Solomon. The horseleech hath two daughters, crying, "Give, give." The Hebrew word translated as horseleech is Alukah. In the ancient languages of the East, Alukah did not refer to a mere water worm. It was a term used for a blood-drinking demon, a creature of the night that was never satisfied. The daughters of the Alukah were hunger and thirst. They were never satisfied. They could never say, "It is enough." They represented the eternal torment of the creature that has cut itself off from the Creator. It is a hunger that grows with every consumption, a thirst that burns hotter with every drop of blood it drinks. This is the true nature of the vampire, not a romantic figure of dark elegance, but a condemned spirit, trapped in an endless cycle of taking, yet never being filled. The prophets of Israel stood against this darkness with a fierce, uncompromising holiness. They looked upon the pagan kingdoms that surrounded them and saw the spiritual disease that threatened to infect the people of the covenant. They saw the priests of Baal cutting themselves with knives until the blood gushed out, offering their own life force to invite the presence of their dark gods. "Do not eat the blood," the prophets warned, "for the life is in the blood." The emotional weight of this struggle was carried by the faithful. They walked a narrow path, guarded by the sanctuary, protected by the blood of the innocent lamb sprinkled upon the doorposts of their homes during the Passover. This blood was not consumed, it was applied. It was a symbol of protection, a boundary that the destroyer could not cross. But the mystery of the blood drinker did not vanish. It morphed. It retreated into the shadows of the collective human memory, finding its way into the mythologies of Greece, of Rome, and eventually of the Slavic lands. And then, the Bible records only one mention of Lilith by name. It is found in the book of Isaiah, in the 34th chapter. The prophet is describing the judgment of God upon the land of Edom, a land that had turned its back on the Lord and embraced the darkness. Isaiah writes of a day of vengeance, a time when the land would be turned into burning pitch and brimstone. The wild beasts of the desert shall also meet with the wild beasts of the island, the prophet warns. And the satyr shall cry to his fellow. The screech owl also shall rest there, and find for herself a place of rest. The Hebrew word translated as screech owl in many modern translations is, in the original Hebrew text, Lilith. The prophet was not validating the pagan myths. He was using a language his audience understood. He was describing a place so desolate, so cursed, so utterly abandoned by the light of God that only the spirits of the night, the Lilith, the Alukah, the entities of the wilderness, could find rest there. It was a warning. To turn away from the Creator is to become a wasteland. To reject the light is to invite the shadow to make its home in your soul. The suspense of this cosmic drama built continuously through the centuries. The prophets spoke of a time when the darkness would be confronted, when the true meaning of the blood would be revealed. They spoke of a new covenant, a covenant that would not be written on tables of stone, but on the fleshly tables of the heart. And then, in the fullness of time, the moment arrived. The ultimate contrast came in the dark hours of a Passover night in Jerusalem. A group of men sat in an upper room, the shadows of the oil lamps flickering against the stone walls. Outside, the city was filled with the noise of pilgrims, but inside, there was a quiet, heavy solemnity. At the center of the table stood a single cup. It was the cup. It was the very object that had been defiled by the fallen ones, the vessel that had been used in the dark rites of the pagans to steal life. But now, it was in the hands of the King of Kings. The master took the cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, his eyes filled with a love that transcended the ages. "Drink from it, all of you," he said, "for this is my blood of the new covenant, which is shed for many for the remission of sins." The disciples looked at him, their hearts tightening with a sudden, shocking realization. To drink blood was strictly forbidden by the law of Moses. It was an abomination. Yet, here was the Messiah, commanding them to drink of his cup. It was the complete reversal of the ancient curse. The blood drinkers of old, the followers of the Alukah and the Lilith, sought to steal life by consuming the blood of the living. They brought only death, corruption, and condemnation. They took by force, seeking to preserve their own fragile mortal existence. But here, the Creator himself offered his own blood. It was not to be taken by force, it was to be received in faith. The vampire drinks blood to live a counterfeit, cursed immortality in the shadows. The believer drinks of the cup of the Lord to receive true, glorious immortality in the light. The climactic event of history was not the rebellion of Cain, nor the descent of the Watchers, nor the ancient terrors of the Alukah. It was the moment the true Lamb of God poured out his life force upon the hill of Calvary. He hung between heaven and earth. The sky became dark as midnight. The veil of the temple was torn in two. The earth drank once more. But this time, the blood did not cry out for vengeance. It did not demand the curse of Cain upon the heads of those who shed it. It spoke a better word than the blood of Abel. It spoke of mercy. It spoke of redemption. It spoke of a covenant that would stand forever, shattering the power of every dark entity, every demon, and every shadow that had ever roamed the night. The shadow of the vampire is but a distorted, demonic reflection of this great, central truth. It is the lie that life can be found in the devouring of others, when true life can only be found in the sacrifice of the one who gave himself for us. It is the ultimate deception of the adversary, turning the sacred mystery of the blood into a source of horror, to keep humanity from recognizing the true source of their salvation. The wind still moves through the ancient ruins of the desert where the Alukah was once said to dwell. The old warnings of the scriptures still stand, written in letters of light upon the pages of history. The darkness may try to reclaim the world, but the light has shined in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. We are left to reflect upon the mystery of the blood. It is the thread that runs through the entire story of humanity, from the first soil of Eden to the golden streets of the New Jerusalem. The choice remains before us, as it did before Cain in the quiet of the field, to seek life in our own strength, wandering in the shadows of the earth, or to drink from the cup of blessing, finding our eternal rest in the presence of the living God. For this is the battle that began in the dawn of time, a struggle fought not with swords of bronze or shields of iron, but in the deepest, most quiet chambers of the human soul. Every heart is a battlefield. Every choice is an altar. We must decide whether we will consume the life of others to preserve our own fragile existence, or surrender our lives to the one who poured out his soul unto death, so that we might live forever in the light of his unbroken promise. Let us stand and watch. The night is far spent, the day is at hand, and the shadows must flee before the rising of the sun.